Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Dave Ribeiro, and I will be your moderator for the session. We're thrilled to have you join us today for an exciting and informative session. We're going to be discussing a project that I couldn't be happier to be kicking off, and that's the EECBG Program Blueprint Cohorts. We have an amazing lineup of speakers who are eager to share their insights and expertise. And this is going to be an interactive and engaging session, so please get ready to take some notes, ask some questions, and then actively participate. So before we dive in, let's quickly go over some housekeeping items. Next slide, please. Okay, so for the first hour of the session, it will be recorded and it will be made available to all attendees along with the slides. We want the session to be interactive, so we're holding it in Zoom meetings. That means you can unmute yourself and turn on video at any time. But please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking to reduce distraction. We also have a culture keeper with us today to ensure that our discussions remain respectful and productive. If you have any concerns, feel free to reach out to our culture keeper, Roxana Ayala. Finally, you can network and chat with one another via the chat button, so feel free to use it. To start, please introduce yourself, and when you do, in a few words, share what you most hope to gain from today's session. Speakers will be able to see those comments and keep them in mind during their presentations. Okay, with that all being said, let's dive in and get moving. Next slide, please. First, let's talk about why we're here today, the EECBG Blueprint Cohorts. This is a key technical assistance program offered to nearly 2,700 state, tribal, and local governments eligible for EECBG funding. Our team of partner organizations is administering the cohorts and providing the training and educational material delivered through those cohorts. Now let's move to the next slide to introduce the team. We have 10 partner organizations serving as the Blueprint administrators. In addition to ACEEE, the team includes the Alliance for Tribal Clean Energy, C40 Cities, Elevate, the Electrification Coalition, Emerald Cities Collaborative, Housing Sustainability Advisors, Solar Crowdsource, and the Carsey School of Public Policy at the University of New Hampshire. We'll be discussing the specific roles each organization will play as the presentation unfolds. Together, we bring deep and varied experience across the Blueprint topic areas, and we're thrilled to bring that expertise to this project. Next slide, please. Here are the folks that you'll be hearing from during today's session. There are so many of us that we couldn't fit everyone's headshots, names, and organizations all on one slide, but each person will introduce themselves as we progress through the presentation so you can get to know us. Next slide, please. So here we have the desired outcomes for today's meeting. First, we want you all to understand the purpose of the EECBG program Blueprint Cohorts. Secondly, we'd like you to get to know the coalition that will be administering the Blueprint Cohorts, us. We're going to be with you over the next year plus as these cohorts unfold. So we want to begin developing those relationships so you know who you'll be working with and we know who we'll be working with. Next, we would love to have your feedback on the content to be delivered as part of the Blueprint cohorts. The coalition has already developed curriculum for the 13 different cohorts, but it's really just a start, because at the end of the day, we want to hear from you on what you need. What do you need for these cohorts to be most successful? So we will present what we have come up with, and we really want to hear from you. So we're going to have some breakout sessions to get that feedback. And then we also developed a survey for folks who would prefer to give their survey or their feedback after the fact. And Ethan, if you want to just pop that in the chat now so folks see it and have that. And then finally, we want to put you in a position to decide on which cohorts you want to join and use the survey that Ethan is putting in there to let us know what your selections are so that we can really get rolling with the project. Next slide, please. So this is the agenda we'll use to achieve those goals. So I've already used my 5 minutes on welcome. Next, we're going to move over to Christine Knapp at SCEP to provide DOE's vision for the Blueprint Cohort program. Next, it's going to come back to me for a short presentation around how these cohorts are going to be administered. Then we'll move into the meat of the session. We're going to have I'll call them lightning rounds for the 13 different cohorts. Every cohort lead is going to have 2 minutes to present the curriculum that we currently have for those cohorts and to get your feedback. Next, we're going to move on to a demonstration of the C40 Knowledge Hub. That's a tool that's going to be used as the communications and engagement hub for all of the cohorts. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we're going to wrap up the session by doing breakout groups. We'll have 13 of them, one for each of the cohort, on the proposed content and the delivery of the educational material. Next slide, please. So let's get moving then. So first, we're going to start up with comments from DOE. So Christine, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, everybody. We can actually move right to the next slide. I'll introduce myself. I'm Christine Knapp. I'm the Program Manager for Community Innovation and Technical Assistance in the Department of Energy's Office of State and Community Energy Programs, or SCEP, as we call it. I will apologize up front that I had dental surgery yesterday, and so I'm physically incapable of smiling right now, but I am very happy to be here and to be working with this coalition and with all of you on getting to this point and getting kicked off on our next visions for the blueprints and the blueprint cohorts. I did just want to show who the team members here are at DOE. Some of them I see have already putting their information into the chat. So you'll be interacting with this awesome team of people right here, as well as the coalition that ACEEE is leading. So we'll go to the next slide and just give you a little bit of the background on blueprints. So our idea here was that we wanted to provide good ideas to communities, right, on how to use their EECBG funds. So these were topics that we saw from stakeholder engagement and feedback sessions that we held that were going to be of high interest to a lot of communities. And so rather than sending you out into the dark on your own to do it, we thought we'd pull together these blueprints that can really give you inspiration and information to help you implement your projects. There's lots of tools and resources and data and other things that already exist that can be utilized in your project implementation. We want to give you some real tactical ways to include equity into your projects. We want to spotlight other grants and other programs that are out there that you may be able to take advantage of, and overall streamline your approval process for your project as well. So we could get some of these 13 sort of ideas, get them some early approvals so that we knew you could move faster through that. Next slide. But we didn't want to just give you, basically a bunch of PDF documents, right? We wanted to expand that into the idea of cohorting and bringing together all of you who are working on similar topics to get together, learn from each other, troubleshoot with each other, have some therapy sessions, get access to information and expertise that's really relevant to what you're trying to do. And so that's where the Blueprint Cohort vision came to life, as a way to kind of take the document and go further and give you even more tailored and important information for your specific program. So the next slide. So to date, we kicked off the initial phase of the Blueprint Cohorts in September. We've held 18 webinars and trainings since that time. We've had over 1,500 total attendees from 300 different eligible entities, which is really fantastic to see. But we do know that we can do more. But so far we've covered some DOE webinars, introduction to the concepts, project planning, engagement, some deeper sort of technology area topics, as well as having NREL, our National Renewable Energy Laboratory, has led some trainings on things like financing and J40. And so those have been great. But again, I think we know with 13 different areas, we can go a lot deeper and access a lot more expertise. And so to the next slide, that brings us to where we are today, which is that we want to, elevate from here and go even further and even more detail by partnering with ACEEE and the coalition of partners that they brought to the table that do have, really deep subject matter expertise and are going to be able to work with you more directly to get you the very customized support that we know you'll benefit from. So from September to where we are in June, and now hopefully in several months' time, we'll be all the way up at the top of that level, kind of bringing you the most possible value. That is where we are. Again, really excited to be with you all. Happy to hear about how the rest of this session goes. But please be in touch with our team at DOE as well, if we can answer any of your questions or give you any additional technical assistance help outside of the Blueprint cohorts. So Dave, I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thanks, Christine. Great. You can next slide. So thanks a bunch, Christine. Appreciate that. So I wanted to start with this slide to reinforce the comments Christina were making around the extensive resources available through these 13 blueprints. So they cover key priority areas in city policymaking related to climate, energy, and transportation. They cover energy planning. There's several on buildings efficiency, renewables, electric transportation, finance, and workforce development. So through this program, again, just to reinforce that for each of these individual 13 blueprints, there will be an individual cohort associated with each of them. I know there might be questions around, are these being grouped in some way in larger cohorts, but there's going to be 13 different cohorts associated with each of these blueprints. And as part of the service delivery here, the cohort leads are really going to seek to cater to the different types of communities that are joining these cohorts. So for example, we have the Alliance for Tribal Clean Energy that's going to be working as part of our team to ensure that across the cohorts, each of them has content that's relevant to tribal nations and really speaks to the specific needs of tribal nations. Next slide, please. Okay, so wanted to sort of go from the bigger picture vision to actually getting into what these are going to look like, because I'm sure there can be lots of questions around that. So there's a few different aspects of what we'll be offering through these cohorts. First, there will be monthly meetings beginning next month that explore the different elements of the curriculum that will unfold over the next 9 to 10 months. There will also be presentations from experts as part of those sessions. Some of those experts will be us, but we will also be inviting guest speakers to join as well, again, to unpack those key activities in those EECBG blueprints. We're also going to have interactive activities. We're not envisioning this will be a lecture series where folks are just talking to you. We really want to engage both during sessions as well as outside of sessions as well to reinforce learnings and really have a good learning environment. Folks will also have access to experts outside of the monthly meetings through our engagement hub, C40's Knowledge Hub. So that's going to be an opportunity for folks to go to that application in between the sessions and pose questions to cohort leads that they will get back to you before the next session. And it's also going to be a venue where there can be peer exchange outside of those monthly calls. And then the last point is on peer exchange. It's going to be an opportunity through the monthly sessions, through our Knowledge Hub, to really share information on successes in your communities, as well as troubleshoot some of those common challenges. Next slide, please. Okay, so getting into the timeline here. So we are officially kicking off this phase of the cohort blueprint cohorts today, and then we're looking to get really started pretty quickly. So our hope is that the first sessions of all 13 cohorts will be completed by the end of July. So it's likely that in the 3rd and 4th weeks of July, we will have completed a session for each of these. We are setting them up in such a way that folks can join multiple cohorts. So we're doing our best to make sure that none of the meeting sessions overlap. So most sessions will begin at 2 in the afternoon or later East Coast time, so that those sessions are available to those in Hawaii as well as Alaska. And after July, where there might be a little bit more of a compressed schedule, just given the timing, we are going to get into a regular cadence beginning in August, where through the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th weeks of each month, the monthly session will be available. Next month is also when we will begin using the Knowledge Hub. So to sign up for that, folks will receive credentials that they will use to access the site. So that will begin next month. And then each month we will have monthly sessions all the way through April of next year, at which point we'll be moving into a different phase of the project. Next slide, please. Okay, so you've already heard at a higher level who's involved in this project, but I wanted to unpack it a little bit so you knew who would be doing what. So there's 8 organizations that are serving as the Blueprint cohort leads. So these are the organizations that are assigned to specific cohorts that they have expertise in. They will be with you over the lifetime of the cohorts to execute the curriculum, to guide you, and to be facilitators. We are also going to work across these organizations as well, but at the end of the day, there is be one lead for each of these cohorts. But we have a couple other roles as well. As I was beginning to mention, we have a tribal liaison on the team. So that will be the Alliance for Tribal Clean Energy. And their work is going to be across all of the cohorts. So as opposed to the Blueprint leads who might be focused in an individual area or a few cohorts, the Alliance for Tribal Clean Energy will work across all 13, reviewing the curriculum and ensuring the content has examples and specific information that's relevant to tribal communities. And lastly, we have C40 cities, which is going to have a dual role. First will be the offering of the Knowledge Hub, which I mentioned a bit. But then also providing a innovation review. C40 has a global reach. And so as we finalize the curriculums and the information we're going to be developing, they're going to be helping us source global best practices, including bringing folks, guest speakers from across the globe to really offer some different perspective during the monthly calls. Next slide, please. So this one, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I wanted to have a reference slide for each of you since we will be sharing this, but this just gives you a sense of the cohort leads, the 8 organizations playing that, and the specific blueprints that they'll be involved in, as well as the EECBG focus areas, so that you just have it for your reference and can understand how all of the pieces fit together here. Next slide, please. So I also wanted to address some common questions that we thought could come up. So the first one being, who is eligible to be in a cohort? So that would be a member of a local, tribal, or state government official, or another government official at the county level, let's say. The cohorts will not be available to others. So I know we have some friends in the room from networks or consultancies, and we're happy you're here to join with us and kick things off. When we get to the phase of actually having the cohorts set up, though, those will be focused on local, tribal, and state governments. We will be inviting outside experts, though. Next, can I only join a cohort? Sorry, not next question, I should have said. Can I only join a cohort if I'm implementing one of the blueprints for my EECBG project? No, absolutely not. So we're seeing these cohorts as educational resources that are available to jurisdictions regardless of your EECBG project. We understand that these cohorts that are being offered across the board could be relevant outside of EECBG, and we would love you all to take advantage of those opportunities and participate in cohorts, even if it doesn't align with your project. The next question here, can I join more than one cohort? Again, yes, that's totally fine. What we would recommend, though, is that you choose one cohort to serve as your primary cohort. I'll get to the level of effort involved in the next question, but the reason we say that is there's going to be a lot of information. And, if someone is joining 5 cohorts, let's say, it's just going to be difficult to digest all of those learnings, and it could be a bit too much. So we're recommending that folks join one cohort as their primary one, and with the expectation that there would be regular participation in that cohort, and then join others as they like. The exception to that would be if you are a large city and you have lots of staff and you want 5 of your staff, 10 of your staff to be taking advantage of these cohorts, then feel free. We would just suggest that whoever is engaging with the cohorts, that each individual have one primary cohort. So whether that's just if you're bringing one person from your city, have one primary cohort. If you're bringing 10, then 10 would be fine. Next, how much time should I expect to spend on every cohort each month? So this is going to vary based upon what you put into the cohorts. At a minimum, it will be 90 minutes, and that's based on the monthly sessions with which at a minimum will be 90 minutes. Sometimes will be up to 2 hours. But then there's other opportunities to engage as well. So there could be monthly office hours. Sometimes those are going to be attached to monthly sessions. In other cases, they're going to be separate. That would be another opportunity to engage. There's using the Knowledge Hub for constant learning. And then some cohorts could have homework that if you do will take more time. So I'd say it's really it's dependent on the specific cohort, and it's dependent on what you want to put in. 90 minutes would be the end, or the lower limit, I should say, but it could scale from there. So these are just 4 of the questions that could come up. If you have more, please throw them into the chat, and I will try to get to them. If I don't get to them during the session today, I will definitely follow up with you to get all of those questions answered. Next slide, please. Okay, so next steps here. So from here, it's really about getting your feedback and then getting things up and running. So first, at the end of the session, like I said, we're going to have breakouts coming up to get feedback on the cohorts that are of interest to you. I'd really recommend for you to stay around for those. I know sometimes breakouts can come up and folks want to jump off, but these are going to be really important for shaping the content that's going to be delivered. So I'd really encourage you to stay and participate in those breakouts. After the session, we're going to send a follow-up survey, though, Ethan, if you want to put it in the chat again now, just so people haven't, feel free to do that. So in that follow-up survey, there's 2 things we're going to ask you to do. 1, this is the mechanism we're going to use to actually have you select specific cohorts. It's going to be what signals ACEEE that you're interested in cohort 1 or 2A or 4A or whatever it may be. And then we're going to use that, pass the information along to the cohort leads. The other thing we're also going to do with the survey, we're going to just use it as another opportunity to get feedback. We understand that some folks can't stick around for the breakouts, or some folks just want to sort of digest the information a little more and do that and provide feedback at a later date. That survey will allow you to do that. So after you have completed that survey, and like I said, we're going to transfer all of that information over to the cohort leads. It's a matter of just waiting for folks to get in touch with you. We would expect that to happen in the second week or so of July, so the week of July 8th. That's when you would get information about next steps and when the first sessions are going to be, and all of that fun stuff. And then it's a matter of the cohort just getting going and joining your first session in July. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to get to the really fun stuff. So these are the cohort lightning round. So as I was saying before, this is where we're going to jump into the curriculums that have currently been developed for each of the 13 cohorts. Folks are going to have 2 minutes to present what they currently have. You'll hear about description of each of the cohorts. You'll hear about the learning outcomes, as well as some of the proposed session titles. They will just sort of tease all of the information in here. The curriculums are pretty long at this point, so we've been trying to really get it down to 2 minutes. But then in the breakouts, that's when you'll be able to engage with it even more. So just as a reminder to all of the speakers, we are at 2 minutes, and I will be enforcing that. So look for reminders from me in the chat, or just some hand waving here and there. Okay, so why don't we go to the next slide here. And I'm going to pass it over to Gus at Elevate to talk about energy planning. So over to you, Gus.
Thanks, Dave. So my name is Gus Cordero. I'm a senior project manager here at Elevate. And so for the energy planning blueprint, we're anticipating that participants will be able to gain the knowledge and skill sets necessary to develop and implement energy plans. And we've developed the course such that it's split up into 5 key modules, each focusing on a variety of a core aspect of the energy planning process. For the specific overview of key items, we are anticipating that participants in the cohort take away, as I mentioned, a general understanding and overview of the entire energy planning process is a key item that we'd like a takeaway for people. Engaging stakeholders and communities effectively, such that diverse stakeholder input can be utilized to help formulate your energy plan, such that they're representative of the communities you're looking for that plan to serve. How to best go about data collection, what data sources should you be using, what tools should you be utilizing to help establish a baseline or benchmarks or even tracking as you're implementing your plan. And then also we'll spend a fair amount of time talking about formulating an energy vision, goals, and strategies that will kind of serve almost as a North Star to your energy plan. And then we'll speak a little bit towards the drafting, adopting, and publicizing of the energy plan if you're at that stage, with specific nuances and challenges that may slide here, but the next slide should show the month-to-month outlook. It's just very high level, just the titles of the sessions here, but in the breakout rooms, we can go into more details of what each month will entail. Back to you, Dave.
Great, thank you, Gus. Excellent time management there. Okay, so why don't we go to the next cohort, 2A. So Jen, I'll pass it over to you.
Great, thanks, Dave. So in Blueprint 2A, we'll be talking about building efficiency and specifically using energy audits to help identify opportunities for building upgrades, some of the other tools that are available. So we'll be looking at approaches on how to track buildings operation and maintenance, energy consumption, how to reduce a building's energy cost, cut greenhouse gas emissions, and identify building upgrade opportunities. So in the course, we hope to cover how to identify and prioritize energy upgrade projects in your building's portfolio using benchmarking tools. So we'll go over a number of those tools, how to get that information, who you need to talk to across your city government and different departments to pull that information together. We'll be looking at how to build internal and external teams to carry out audits and upgrade projects. We'll be looking at the knowledge, looking at available funding sources and how you can stack resources most effectively to pay for your building energy upgrades. So whether they may be some federal support you're getting, state resources, and then what you have in your local accounts as well. We'll be talking about the different types of energy upgrades and how to select the right project for each building based on your energy goals. So certainly, in many cases, you might need capital upgrades in some of your buildings, but you may have others where simple O&M projects to get the buildings operating in top shape can do it with a much lower cost and few capital outlays. So we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the steps necessary to ensure energy savings and the other benefits of projects persist over time. So next slide. So here is a quick snapshot of the courses that we have planned. Certainly, again, identifying and prioritizing those opportunities. We'll be talking about the different facility types that are common in local government that maybe have specific needs. How there are many other benefits to efficiency upgrades. How to understand what's right for you, getting that right team together. Some of the technologies that are key. Of course, making those savings last. And we'll also hear some success stories from your colleagues in local government to hear about what's worked for them and some of the lessons that we can all carry forward into our work. So that's it, Dave. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Jen. So next up, we have energy savings performance contracts. So I'll send it over to Tim at NAESCO.
Great, thanks. Well, I represent Blueprint 2B, the Energy Savings Performance Contracts and Energy Efficiency Electrification of Government Buildings. We're going to focus mostly on how you do an energy savings performance contract because they tend to be a little more complicated at times than maybe just the run-of-the-mill contracting job you've encountered. We believe that there's really some key things about an energy savings performance contract we should focus on. One of those is the selection process of how do you figure out what ESCO to use and what does that cycle look like? How do you develop your contract structure that you're going to work with them? The second stage that we think is important is the investment grade audit. That is the thing that creates the scope of work, projects the savings, projects the costs, the time frame, all the requirements for the contract after you've done construction and so forth. We will touch on the construction portion of the cycle because we know that construction is at the heart of these projects. And we'll talk about some of the keys you should be aware of there. And then finally, at the end, we'll talk about the performance period. Performance contracts can last 10, 15, 20 or more years, depending on how long you want to go. And we want to make sure you understand how that works through the cycle. One of the key things that we believe in our cohorts that's important is to have discussion about with questions and answers, and we'll probably have some people who've had some experience of putting that together. Our team that will present has been on all sides of this type of contract. They've been on the delivery side, been on the management side, and now at NASCO, we are on the oversight overall and ensuring industry integrity and making sure that things work right side. So come to our cohort and learn more about how you do these performance contracts. We look forward to answering questions and working through some of the details. Let's go to the next slide. Next slide. Yep. So this is our piece on how we'll do this. Engagement is what we talk about in how we engage with the client. The development is the piece where we develop the audit. Financing is really key to these projects. The contracting and construction are pieces that are common, but we think there's some key pieces there. And then finally, the performance period. Dave, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Okay, so next up we have Blueprint 2C. For this one, we're going to go back to Gus at Elevate.
Great. Thanks, Dave. So for the building electrification campaign, what we've prepared is the general expectations that participants will also gain knowledge and skills necessary to develop, implement, and communicate effective building electrification campaigns. How to best communicate the information that you want to the participants you're looking to serve. We've structured this again into 5 different modules, each focusing on a different aspect of developing, implementing, and managing a building electrification campaign. So some key items that we anticipate that you'll take away from participating through this cohort is the importance and benefits of building electrifications, the environmental, the technical, and the social impacts of building electrification, and learning how to be able to effectively communicate that to potential participants of your electrification efforts. We'll also discuss on, and you'll learn how to best design and implement electrification campaigns by identifying what the opportunities are in your region, what are the specific tools that you can use to make communication efforts easier, but also addressing some challenges that might come into play. We'll also definitely discuss on how to best communicate the funding and financing strategies to make electrification affordable for folks who might not necessarily have the upfront cash to do so. Discussing the pros and cons of the various financial mechanisms at play here. And then more importantly, we'll serve as a takeaway of how to develop and execute your communication strategies effectively. How do you identify partners? What partners can you use? And how to best target and reach the target audience you want to reach for your efforts here. Next slide, Dave. And then here's just a month-to-month breakdown for what we've prepared so far for this blueprint cohort. And we can definitely discuss more in the breakout groups later in the session. Thanks, Dave.
Great, thanks, Gus. Okay, so next we have Blueprint 2D, Building Performance Standards and Stretch Codes. Emily, over to you.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Garfinkel at EECBG, and my colleague Guy Gruen and I will be leading the cohort on building performance standards and stretch codes. The main objective of this cohort will be covering the process and benefits of those 2 policies. We'll look at creating a structured stakeholder engagement plan, performing building stock analyses, setting targets and metrics for BPS and stretch codes, evaluating compliance pathways and handling enforcement, analyzing cost effectiveness, and implementing workforce development and training programs for implementation of these policies. Next slide, please. Our topics that we'll cover within the cohort fall into 3 general areas: stakeholder and partner engagement, policy design, including benchmarking, target setting, and compliance pathways, and policy implementation, including workforce development and capacity building. Throughout the sessions, we'll discuss strategies for engaging underserved and Justice 40 communities in policy design and strategies for ensuring equitable distribution of benefits of these policies. Sessions will vary in format and will be informed by participants. Thanks, and back to you, Dave.
Great, thank you, Emily. And thank you to everyone so far in terms of time management. I thought that you were going to make my jobs a lot easier or a lot harder than it's turning out to be. Okay, so now we're going to get to Blueprint 3A, Solar and Storage, Power Purchase Agreements, and Direct Ownerships. Back to Gus.
Thanks, Dave. So for this blueprint, we're going to be focusing on providing a comprehensive understanding of general solar energy systems with the integration of storage solutions, and how this integration of technologies influence both power purchase agreements and direct ownership models. For this blueprint, we're anticipating that key takeaways here will be having a comprehensive understanding of the solar and storage systems as a whole, making sure that everyone has kind of same foundational knowledge of what the technology can do, what its use cases have been currently in the market, comprehensive understanding of power purchase agreements, how they work, how to develop skills to negotiate and manage power purchase agreements, understanding the importance of site locations, and the economic assessments to those sites locations, depending on the size of the system you're looking to install. We'll also discuss how various legal and procurement considerations can affect the ability to implement, how to navigate creating, issuing, and managing various RFPs if you're at that stage, and then just best practices and good market techniques on the operations, performance monitoring of the actual solar array system themselves. Thanks, Dave. If we can switch to the next slide, we'll have a month-to-month breakdown here of what we currently have planned. And that's all I have for now. Discuss more of the breakout rooms.
Great, thanks, Gus. Next slide. So next we have Blueprint 3B, Community Solar. So over to Jared at Housing Sustainability Advisors.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me join. I'm Jared Lang, Principal of Housing Sustainability Advisors. I teach a course on how to become a low-income community solar developer, and I've been developing community solar for about 10 years. And looking forward to I have in a past life I worked for an association of local government officials, and really excited to work on community solar from the local government perspective. So we're going to talk about, in the class, some different forms of community solar, the different benefits that we can give to residents, both market rate and low income, how local government policy and incentives can kind of shape the community solar environment. We're going to talk about using locally owned sites to foster community solar, community engagement strategies. We're going to bring in some speakers from the industry to talk a little bit about how we create good programs. And we're going to bring in some people from local governments to talk with you who have done this successfully. And then we're going to have some group projects and some peer sharing, and we're going to create some action plans for how you can bring community solar into your community. Next slide. So this is just the month-to-month breakdown. We're going to start out with kind of the basics. Then get a little bit into regulatory, then incentives, talk about site selection and the characteristics of a good site, community engagement. We're going to get into the financing, just enough, so from a local government perspective, you understand how the projects are structured. We're going to talk about the development process, and then, finally, we're going to sort of build a roadmap for you all to go off on your own and foster community solar in your own communities. That's it for me, Dave.
Great, thanks, Jared. Okay, next up we have Blueprint 3C, Solarize campaigns. So I'll send it over to Don at Solar Crowdsource.
All right, thank you, Dave. My name is Don Moreland with Solar Crowdsource, and we have been doing Solarize programs around the country for around 8 years now, and formerly worked with other organizations doing technical assistance for Solarize programs as well. So we're quite familiar with Solarize programs and kind of teaching communities how to go about it. And when communities start thinking about just clean energy and sustainability initiatives, generally Solarize is one of the first things that they will go to, because it's a proven model. They've been around for about 15 years, and what they are community-based group purchasing campaigns that make solar more affordable and more accessible than solar would otherwise be. They make solar more affordable or more accessible, I should say, by vetting contractors, materials, and pricing in advance so community members don't have to. And then more affordable by group purchasing the community volume amount of solar that folks sign up for during a certain period of time, and getting volumetric discounts on materials and pricing. These are typically open to homeowners, commercial owners, and nonprofits, increasingly nonprofits, with changes in the tax laws with IRA and the ability to monetize those tax credits. It's more than just solar. These programs have kind of evolved to include solar, battery storage, and electric vehicle charging stations, and they've also evolved to become a trusted source of where folks can go solar. There's a lot of information out there, and having these community-based programs with a lot of education and outreach involved is a great part of it. And one thing that's really exciting right now with these solarized programs is that you can leverage all of these great benefits that normally come with a solarized program and have an even larger impact for low and moderate income and underserved communities. And with developing this framework with programs like Solar for All that are coming up, and funding sources with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, you've really got a framework that can help continue the effort for low and moderate income folks. So if you have already had a solarized program in your community, you might want to think about doing it again. If you're thinking that, wow, these are programs that are going to take a lot of resources, well, that's what we're here to help with. We're here to help you understand what the tools, resources, service providers, business models, and best practices are, so it won't be a drain on resources for your community. So if you go to the next slide, we'll just take a quick look at what the curriculum looks like. We'll be going over this in more detail in the breakout session, but we take you all the way from getting a critical source of stakeholder engagement from the community all the way through the installation and quality assurance with the campaign and with the different installations. So I look forward to seeing you guys in the breakout session. Dave, back over to you.
Great, thanks, Don. Next up, we have Blueprint 3D, Renewable Resource Planning for Rural and Tribal Communities. So back to Gus for this one.
Thank you, Dave. So for the Renewable and Resource Planning for Rural and Tribal Communities Blueprint, we're anticipating that overall participants will gain the knowledge and skills necessary for planning, implementing, and managing renewable energy projects tailored to the unique needs and characteristics of rural and tribal communities. So for this one, we're going to be, again, providing just a general overview of the renewable energy fundamentals, some of the benefits and challenges of implementing renewable energy system solutions in these types of communities, and how there are best practices or case studies on how there are successful initiatives that do so. We'll talk about how to conduct a market assessment and job assessment, especially focusing on the jobs when it comes to workforce development and job creations locally to these communities and regions, how to best communicate that potential outcome to members who live within these communities as well. Engaging and managing for a variety of stakeholders. We understand that there are going to be a variety of players involved here, with developers, local governments, and as well as local stakeholders as well that may all have different perspectives. How to best effectively manage and engage them throughout this process is an area that we'll be focusing on for this curriculum. And then developing and implementing action plans. For those who are very early on into the process, developing an action plan can be helpful in kind of helping maintain consistency and momentum throughout this process. And so we'll be discussing how to best do that, what it may look like, how to tailor it, how to modify it as you go along through your initiatives. And then we'll also have learnings and takeaways on how to monitor and evaluate overall project performance when it comes to renewable resource systems. Next slide will showcase the high level just breakdown of the month-by-month session that we have here. Pretty straightforward for us right now, but we're looking forward to conversating in the breakout rooms to see how we can tailor the content more for the rural and tribal communities. Thanks, Dave.
Great, thanks, Gus. So now we're going to move into our electric transportation portion of things. So we have Blueprint 4A, electric vehicles and fleet electrification, as well as Blueprint 4B, EV charging infrastructure for the community. And for both of these, I'm going to send it over to Matt at Electrification Coalition.
Great, thanks, Dave, and good seeing everyone. Yeah, those not familiar, Electrification Coalition, we work nationally across various elements of deployment for EVs and charging. So we're really excited to have both of these blueprints. For the electric vehicles and fleet electrification topic, we really wanted to focus both on how we can have some solid 101 getting to know the subject and topic if you're not familiar, but also things for the more advanced folks, those that might be a deployment or two already into their own fleet planning. You can see a breakdown of the what will you learn, trying to really focus it on across 4 main categories. So one, really looking not just at what does light duty electrification look like, which is often a really easy thing to quickly grasp, but what does it also look like in transit, school bus, medium and heavy duty, refuse, or other types of deployment? We also have a lot of questions emerging on workforce development and how do you really incorporate that ever more into your fleet planning. So really excited to have some new curriculum we would be bringing to bear there. And then finally, also thinking about how can we bring the community into that. Many are familiar with community benefit plans or other things often required in new federal funding programs. So we're also going to bring some element into that and thinking about how this can be more than just the your own organization or municipality's own needs. And then finally, navigating procurement. There's a lot of great ways that you can think about this. The good news is you don't just have to go to bid solicitation, but maybe can take advantage of other cooperative purchasing and incentive programs. So on the next slide, we have a rundown of this. One thing I'll call attention to, you'll see a couple of these are called cross-topic sessions. And it's basically going to be a co-led session between both the EV and the charging topic I'll shift into. We realized there was just a lot of cross-discipline to that, and it's a great opportunity to really blend those pieces and elements together. Maybe some other things to also call out, again, to just different sections and ways to think about electrification and increasing popularity. So we're also wanting to think about car share and ride share fleet electrification, which has been an emerging topic, and also port electrification. This isn't necessarily the maritime vessels, but more the inland operations. So port drayage trucks, things to that effect. Why don't we move to the next slide? So for the EV charging side of the shop, so Blueprint 4B, again, also really wanted to focus on how we can cover our basics and also some more advanced topics to really help take folks all the way through the comprehensive study. So again, we'll start right simply at the basics, running through what is level 2, what's DC fast charging, but then quickly shifting our focus to how do we proactively engage with utilities and other community members. It's a really important element, to be candid. Often charging infrastructure is the biggest hindrance and barrier that we find when we work with a lot of partners. So we really want to be sure folks understand how they can effectively plan on both sides of this to lead to effective deployment. Again, best practices with siting infrastructure is also going to be a key piece to this. That's everything from thinking about how you might be able to incorporate charging into new builds. That way you can minimize some of that cost of installation, and also engaging with community to garner buy-in or even think about opportunities where charging could be leveraged both for public and fleet use, for instance. So on the next slide again, you'll see that we have those cross-topic sessions highlighted, as well as key breakouts and consideration across a variety of topics. So not just thinking about your own entity or municipality's own charging needs, but how we can also cover charging topics across multifamily dwellings, workplaces, and a lot of other elements. Also really excited to point out towards the back half, we also focus on reliability and uptime, resiliency planning, and ADA and wayfinding as well, which are really important to also consider. So a lot to cover in that topic, but really excited to share it. Back to you, Dave.
Great, thanks, Matt. Okay, next up we have blueprint number 5, unlocking sustainable financing solutions for energy projects and programs with revolving loan funds. So for this one, we'll send it to Michael at the Carsey Center.
Thanks, Dave. Maybe we have the record for the longest title for
I think you do. I think you do.
But we're proud of that. Anyhow, we're really going to focus on the question of what can you do with a revolving loan fund? And a lot of this will be driven by who's in the workshop, who joins. For example, we want to know, is this a new fund? Is it an existing fund with new products? So first is just some context setting about who's in the room and where do you stand right now in terms of what you're doing or what you want to do. So then we'll have to look at developing goals and objectives for the fund. Who will be served by the fund? Who are you trying to target? What products do you have in mind? From there, we want to look at the issue of how do you build that potential market? We've done a lot of training over the last 5 years for lenders. And one of the things that lenders find is just because you think it's a great product doesn't mean there's a particular market for it. And so a lot of times in financing, you end up having to do work that involves building your potential market before you can actually lend to that market. So we really want to focus on this whole idea of market building and market building for what particular products and who you'll serve through that. Beyond understanding your potential market, then we'll also cover a range of sort of fund management issues. So what's the capitalization of the fund? Is it more than just what you're getting from the government? Do you want to raise additional sources? How do you manage that fund? Who makes decisions about the loans? Is it all internal? Do you want outside people? Asset management has to do with how do you manage your portfolio over time? What happens if you start to experience losses? How do you address those issues of portfolio management and growth? We also want to deal with how you partner with other lenders. In the energy finance field, there are often capital stacks and multiple lenders. Particularly now, there are going to be a lot of lenders out there who have GGRF money. How do you partner with them? How do you partner with CDFIs? How do you partner with private financial institutions who may play an important part in building up the capital stack? How do you work with green banks? Many states now have green banks. So there are all these sources of capital out there. We'll really want to focus on what's your particular role, what's the unique contribution you can make to building the market and being able to develop products that are actually useful for your community, and what other resources do you have? So Dave, why don't we move to the next slide? And this is just a list of ideas. It'll be shaped again by the people who join the particular cohort. But again, looking at coordination, GGRF, a lot of questions about that, a lot of money coming into the field in just the next few months. We'll look at target markets and techniques for building markets through stakeholder engagement in particular. We'll spend some time on product development and underwriting, look at how you provide technical assistance to your borrowers, where do you get the resources for that. And also look at the concept of evaluation. How do you know what you're doing is any good anyhow? I mean, one of the things that we often say in finance is just because you make a loan and people repay that loan, it doesn't mean you've made the world any better off. It just means you've made a loan and someone's repaid it. So we want to look at what is it you're trying to achieve and how do you put in place a system to evaluate that. And we'll look at case studies throughout the course, but at the end, maybe look at some particular ones that interest people. So that's about it for me, Dave.
Great. Thanks, Michael. And then we'll move on to our last, but certainly not least, blueprint. So we have blueprint number 6, workforce development. And for that one, I will send it to Alyssa over at Emerald Cities Collaborative.
Thanks, Dave. My name is Alyssa Moore. I'm a project manager at Emerald Cities Collaborative, and we are leading the workforce development cohort, which is focused on understanding the process and benefits of workforce development in the clean energy industry, and really focusing on those key activities to help guide jurisdictions to success in your projects. So you'll learn why workforce development is important and how to approach your key activities while centering equity. So to do that, we'll cover how to map potential workforce development partners and understand a workforce needs assessment. We'll also cover how to design a workforce development strategy to inform your program design and curriculum development. We'll also cover engaging with disadvantaged communities to expand access to economic opportunities in the clean economy, and that includes utilizing wraparound services. And finally, we'll talk about developing collaborative and accountable relationships with those disadvantaged communities through equitable stakeholder engagement. Next slide, please. And here is a snapshot of our schedule. We have set up our cohort so we alternate between workshops where we cover content and peer learning sessions where we dive deep on the content we covered through facilitated activities and exercises to really get a better understanding of how to put all of these ideas into practice in your city or jurisdiction. And I'd be happy to talk to you more in our breakout session. Looking forward to it. Back to you, Dave.
Great. Thanks so much, Alyssa. I know that was a lot of information for folks, 13 cohorts, 2 minutes, a lot of information, but I got very excited hearing about all the content that was going to be delivered through these groups. I hope you did as well. And that's one part of it. We also have other tools that we're going to be offering as well. And on that note, we're going to be transferring over to C40 now. Daniel's going to give a demo on how the Knowledge Hub is going to work. So Mark, if you want to stop sharing your slides, and then Dan, over to you.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me today. So today we wanted to take a little look at our engagement tool, the C40 Knowledge Hub private pages we've designed here. We designed these pages built off a template to try and help our staff members kind of create pages, create spaces to work with, select groups of people around the world and kind of move their projects forward, share critical information, collaborate, bring our groups together. And so these private pages kind of run in the background of our system, and we're going to be creating one for each of our Blueprint cohorts so that we can kind of use them as a collaborative space, bring everyone together in that one space there. Now, all of the pages are designed off a template. We wanted to make it really easy for people to navigate between the pages and understand what we're kind of offering, where to go to find information. So as you kind of go through the different pages, you'll notice that we have these five tabs here. Now, just note, I've used some of our kind of curriculum information, some of the beginning information we're starting to develop now to kind of create this page. But as we kind of launch the final pages, they may look very different to what I'm showing you now. I'm just kind of using this as an example, trying to give you an idea of how they might be structured and where you'll go to find information there. So on our first tab, on our overview tab, this is where you're going to find more information about the actual kind of base of the Blueprint cohort there. This is where you could be listing out any sort of text-based, link-based, or image-based information. These could be, a list of our learning outcomes that we want to be structuring. They could be kind of information about the format, the approach, the monthly meetings. At the bottom, I kind of put in a nice little table showing kind of each of the months and the schedule here. And so this is up to us to kind of decide kind of what information we need to share, what is the critical information we want to get across and make available here in this kind of core page here. Now, this is all editable. We control what's managed here, what kind of information is shown, and it's all like interlinkable as well. Then the next tab that we have is our kind of file explorer. And this is really kind of the base of our file system. We have a folder structure on the side here that allows us to kind of structure the files in a way that is kind of helpful and kind of, most intuitive to our users. I, again, just use this as an example. So I created this as an example of one way that we could create it, but it's completely up to us. We decide what our kind of structure is, what our kind of levels are, and we can kind of go down, make it easy for people to really drive down to the information they want, or we can kind of go broader and have kind of bigger areas with kind of more information and bigger topic kind of structural areas there. This is all searchable as well. So you can use our little search bar at the top here if you're looking for something specific, looking for a case study or an assignment or one of the cohort calls. And so it all just becomes interlinkable there as well. And when I say interlinkable, it's all interlinkable between our overview and files tab here. So for instance, on our main page here, I've linked to our curriculum. That is the curriculum we're storing right here in our kind of file explorer here. And so it doesn't matter where you go to get the information. It's really about just making sure that you can find the right information in the way that's most easy and intuitive for you to find that information. The next tab that we have here is our webinars and workshops tab. And this is really where we're able to kind of expand out some of the information we share around the meetings, the calls, events coming up, any kind of area we want to kind of dive a little bit deeper in. Here's an example of one of our webinar pages. It allows me to kind of put information about what's coming up, agendas, descriptions. I can put in summary notes, link to kind of files that we wanted them to have access to. I can link to recordings or other kind of areas that will be relevant. And so this allows us to really dive a lot deeper on this individual interaction, this activity in a sense. And it all kind of interlinks so we can plan upcoming ones You can have things coming up that you might need people to look at, or you could be planning things that have happened in the past and providing that kind of, archival information so that they can access that information at any time whenever they need it there. The next tab we have is our related knowledge tab. And this is actually what interlinks with the public side of the Knowledge Hub. So in the private pages, we're controlling what information is shared and who gets access to these private pages. And so we're able to then link to the public side of the Knowledge Hub, pull in those relevant articles. This could be something like creating a required reading list. It could just be relevant articles you think are going to be helpful and kind of, help our cohorts and our kind of teams and cities, municipalities kind of take action. And so, feel free to kind of link things up there as well. And the last tab we have is our discussions tab. And this is where then it links into a little bit of that collaboration of bringing the community part together. I'm just going to jump over to an example of one of our groups here. Again, I just created this very quickly as an example, but you can start to see kind of how this works. Once we invite our members into the group, they can then post their updates, share their announcements, share kind of, case studies, files, assignments. It's a great place to kind of share those big updates, bring everyone together and make sure that we're kind of, all on the same page as we move forward together and all collaborating and working together. We can kind of post. We can also have a poll option here. So this might be a good way to kind of offer people with some multiple option kind of questions here. And so that they can kind of really drive down. You can really kind of, structure the questions and answers here. So there's also another great place to answer, just ask questions you have of the group, coming in, asking a question and kind of collaborating on the answer and seeing kind of where that conversation goes in a sense there. Now, the discussion groups do have automatic email notifications. And so you'll get to choose the kind of level of notifications you'll receive from the system. This might be, daily updates, kind of summarizing all of the kind of conversations going on. You might want kind of emails on every post, weekly digests, and those kind of, all these different levels to help you choose where and how you want to be communicated from the group and when you'll be coming in to kind of do your work and kind of work with us team members here. So the private pages and the discussion groups, we kind of pull those together to kind of create this engagement hub and allow us to kind of share information, structure, and bring kind of important kind of files, information, webinars, links, whatever we need to bring to our members. And then our discussion group allows that interaction, that kind of back and forth communication, and allows everyone to, share their own updates, communicate, and kind of bring everyone together on that kind of platform there. So thank you so much for having me.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. And that shows why we're so excited about the platform. It's something that cohort leads are going to be able to use to organize webinars and other materials, but also for everyone to use for that peer exchange. So Mark, if you want to go back to sharing your screen so we could explain the breakouts and then get into that part. Okay, yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so now we're moving into our breakout session. So again, I would really encourage folks to stick around. I know sometimes there's going to be an urge to leave when breakouts start. Please don't do that. Let me just tell you how it's going to work. So everyone is going to be assigned to a breakout room to start. We asked everyone that when they registered for this event to list the areas of interest so we knew where to sort people. So after this breaks, one of my colleagues will put you in a room. That being said, you're going to have the option to leave that room and choose another one if you wish. I'll explain how to do that on the next slide. Once you get into the room, the cohort lead at least one cohort lead will be in the session with you, is going to work you through a series of questions to get some feedback from you. We'll also make sure we have note takers. So we have a half an hour in total for these breakout sessions that we're going to bring you back at 4:28 local time, so a little bit before that to wrap up. We know many of you are interested in participating in several cohorts, so feel free to switch at the 15-minute mark, so about 15 minutes after the hour or 17 minutes after the hour, and go into another cohort to begin providing feedback on that. And I'll tell you how to do that on the next slide. Okay, so in terms of switching rooms, as I said, when you are there, when we start, you will automatically be put in a room. But if you want to leave at the 15-minute mark, this shows you quickly how to do that. So if you see step 1 on the screen there, there'll either be a little prompt that you could press that says choose different breakout room, or if you've been there long enough that that goes away, you could press in the bottom right the little leave room icon. When you press that, that's going to send you back to the main Zoom room that folks are in. From there, you can see step 2. There will either be a prompt saying to join a breakout room, or you could press the icon that's a circle with the 3 dots in the middle. If you press that, you'd see step 3, where there is a join breakout room button. You would press that, and then there would be an option to choose which of the 13 breakouts you would like to go to. So again, at the 15-minute mark or so, if you'd like to step into another one, feel free to use these steps to do exactly that. So we're going to open the breakout rooms in a second. I'll just say for anyone who signed up late, we don't necessarily have your assignments yet. So just hang around in the room. If you don't get placed in something, we have 2 folks who are going to stay in this room to make sure if anyone has challenges that they could get to where they need to be. Okay, so with that being said, why don't we, Krista, why don't we open the breakout rooms, and we'll see everyone in 20-25 minutes. Hi, folks. I know folks are slowly coming back, but just wanted to do a quick wrap up here. Mark, could you share your screen if you're still with us? But I'll just say first, thanks to everyone for joining the session. I know 90 minutes is a long time to hang in there, and everyone's so busy. So thank you so much for joining for the 90 minutes. I hope the information was helpful and that you're excited to engage with this program. So at this point, the ask would be to complete the survey that is linked to right here. So this survey is essential for knowing which cohort you're going to be, or which cohorts you'll be participating in. So for nothing else, please click on that link and complete it so that we know which cohorts we should invite you to. And it is also an opportunity to give additional information and additional feedback on the cohorts. So if you didn't get to if you didn't say everything you wanted to in one of your breakouts, and I did see a comment already with someone wanting to provide some feedback on another cohort, the survey is the perfect opportunity to do that. So if folks have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. My email address is there. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining the session, and looking forward to seeing folks soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.